But yeah, so these amazing ladies over here, I'm going to introduce you to them very, very quickly and then sort of introduce myself. So we have on the end over there, Liz, if you'd like to tell us a little bit about what you do.
I'm Liz. I'm a Prince William Scholar. So that's a partnership with BAFTA and Warner Brothers, studying computer game software development, with my research focus on VR, which is why I'm here. Very, very passionate about VR and horror, so a lot of my research is sort of in that area. But yeah, that's me.
Cool. And next we have Sophie, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie Smart. I am one of the producers at Hammerhead VR. We do a whole host of things from 360 video to immersive branding to content, and we're actually at the moment working on a couple projects, our own IPs. One's called Abduction, which is a mini-series about aliens, and the other is called Abe, with a very creepy robot in it.
Lovely, thank you. And Sarah, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah Jones. I work for Coventry University, but I'm a former television journalist. So my work kind of spreads across immersive journalism and then into immersive education. So I'm creating immersive experiences for education from primary school up to university level. But I also do a lot of research into narratives and empathy and all those things that everyone likes to talk about.
Thank you. And Marisol, please.
Hello, I'm Marisol. I work for the Department for International Development. I'm the head of creative content there, principally working in the immersive storytelling space through a collaboration with Google Expeditions, and we're producing a series of educational tours for children from developing countries. But I also like to say that I also recently wrote an article for Sight and Sound magazine about virtual reality, so I'm quite proud of that too.
Perfect, thank you very much. And as I said, I'm Samantha. I run a company called Virtual Umbrella, which does marketing and PR for virtual reality. So yeah, these are our lovely ladies that are going to join us for the next sort of 20 minutes. So in general, we have all come from really, really different backgrounds. So I've tried to mix this up a little bit and look at artists, marketeers like myself, journalism, education, just so we can have a nice little mix here. So previous to this panel, we've had a little bit of a discussion, and we've all discussed thinking that it's really, really important for us to celebrate where VR has got so far. So in the space of a year, from the last conference to this conference, so much has happened. There's been so many different companies that have come to light, so many new developers, so many new people we're always meeting, and I think that's really, really important to celebrate. And a lot of, Marisol and I've discussed this before, I think it's a bit of a British thing where we don't really tend to celebrate our successes, but I think we should, because I think the UK is doing a really, really great job. So I want to ask the panel very quickly, what do you think the areas of VR have been successful so far, or what has stuck out to you in the past year? Who would like to start?
Oh, Liz.
Me? I just think it'd be a good point to make about sort of events like this and how collaborative everybody is. Like, no one's scared to share what they've learned or what they're embarking on, and I think that's really important in how fast it's coming along, and I think that's great, especially from like an education standpoint. With me being a student, it's quite difficult to find those resources, and to find those resources stacking up over the time that I've been doing this. It's just testament to how invested everybody is in that. So I think that's been an impressive point of view for me.
Yeah. For me, it's been so many different things, but really, at the company, we've been talking about hardware for so long, and we're finally getting our hands on some of this hardware. And to know that now the next step is to look at what software we're creating for it, and to see what we can create is what's going to be really exciting for me very soon. But to have seen over this last year the launches for all the different pieces of hardware has been fantastic, and I've loved it.
Yeah, I think the community as well is really, really important, because it is quite a small community. I know a lot of people here, and I'm still relatively new, maybe, I guess, in this world. But that community is really important as you're developing stuff. I spend a lot of my time trying to stitch things, and if anyone is in that world as well, wanting to throw computers and cameras across the room is a regular habit of mine, and I find that really, really frustrating. So I love having this community that I can jump into and say, help, what's wrong with this image, why won't it stitch, which is what I do quite a lot of. But I think also looking at how it's developed. I'm not a gamer. I'm not really a gamer at all. I played Land's End and Monument Valley because I love that stuff, and that's about it. But I think VR as an application for various different areas is so exciting. I think education is really, really important, and kids learning. My 3-year-old loves VR. She absolutely loves it, and she has a headset and she runs around chasing dinosaurs, and I think that's really exciting as a new generation into VR and a different application from traditional gaming. So I love the different communities forming.
For me, it's really, the emergence of all these collaborative groups and the fact that you can just, post something online and meet somebody. I mean, I met Sammy just through the hashtag Women in VR and the amazing series of articles she wrote about inspiring women who are doing different things in the sector, developers, gamers, storytellers, journalists. So I really think that that's the most exciting part of this, is that people are connecting around this new technology.
Definitely. I think a lot of people especially in VR, spend a lot of time on Twitter, basically trying to find other people, especially women are trying to find other women. But yeah, I think, like I say, community is really, really important. And obviously, we are a Women in VR panel, so if we didn't touch on it, it would be a bit odd. So there's been a couple of things that we want to discuss today, nothing too hectic, nothing too manic, but where the VR community for women has been going recently. And something that we discussed previous to this, Sarah's touched on this previously about, approaching people at events, or coming up to them and going, oh, so what do you do? And you go, oh, I'm a woman in VR. Oh, okay. And Sarah's found that it's more the reaction of saying this that's really kind of affected you a little bit more. So would you like to talk about that a little bit?
I think it is just a general reaction, and it's women maybe in tech completely. And I said before, my background was in television news, so I was quite used to kind of sexist environments in newsrooms maybe. So it's something that I'm quite familiar with. But I think generally a reaction, if you go and talk to somebody that's talking about VR technology and they look at you almost as if to say, you don't know what you're talking about. Or do you do VR for makeup or fashion? And I don't do any of that. I tell stories. So I think there is that general perception. And I think it's in lots of industries. Yeah. It's not just in the tech world. But there are those perceptions that
exactly.
It doesn't bother me because I can shout louder than a lot of people. But I think for students maybe coming into it, and I think you can talk probably a bit more about this, it's that not being able to see a lot of women and not being given kind of the respect of other people because of the gender. And you're the only girl in your course.
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think from my sort of experience, I've just found the whole gaming sort of community is so helpful and so receptive to you and wanting to sort of encourage that collaboration and putting you forward. And I just think it's really nice. I think that I've had very positive experiences from where I've been, but I guess this is what I've always wanted to do, and I think it's my attitude, and so I will go in there and just sort of be like, this is what I want to do, and I don't really understand this, and maybe there is a bit of an innateness in ladies, I don't know, but I'm quite sort of, I can be quite confident, and I'm sort of like, I think I know how to do this, but can you just tell me if I'm right, or am I just a complete idiot? And when I've mentored sort of young people with code, I've found that is very prominent in the females within it. So I think it's maybe just a bit of innateness that is being identified, and so it's being encouraged, and so I think having an understanding of that is probably what's, I'm not saying it's the only thing, but for me it's been very positive.
I think mentoring is really important. I think that comes back to the whole community and collaboration. Mentoring is so important.
Yeah, definitely, and it's really rewarding out of it. It's great.
That's good. Sophie, have you got anything to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, a few months ago, I did a bit of a workshop with Accenture, and it was a Girls in STEM event, and it was amazing. They had them all over the country, in London, in Manchester, in Newcastle, and it was just so inspiring to just spend a good chunk of of a day explaining to these young girls what VR is. And at the end of it, I just had so many of them coming up to me saying, can I have your email address? What's your website? I want to know more about this. And then just inviting them into the company and showing them some more of our experiences has been really fulfilling. And I think it really starts with that young age. Getting these girls into the tech at that age will help with that confidence that you were speaking about.
Yeah, it's definitely confidence.
Yeah, I think it's really important to have role models that everybody can look to, which are across a broad spectrum of backgrounds, not just women. That's 50% of the population after all. There are a lot of people who need to be represented in this new field, and I think it's great that we can see, even on this panel and even within the last few months, more people putting themselves forward to inspire others.
Definitely.
Yeah, it's really nice.
I think it's if you've got confidence to go out and just actively go and talk to somebody and go, hey, I'm doing this. Do you just want to have a chat?
Yeah.
I mean, I have a massive confidence issue myself, and I've always struggled to go out and go, I do know what I'm talking about, but I'm scared that you don't know what I'm talking about. Things like that. And I found confidence in meeting women like this, where they believe in me and I believe in them. And I think that's really important and really, really key.
Yeah, sure.
And again, that goes back to the community as well. If we've got a pucker community that can really support everybody, I think that's fantastic. And that will definitely help lead the way with VR with women and men. And I think that's really, really cool.
Completely. I mean, I think, a lot of the really terrible stories that you hear and a lot of the terrible situations which are highlighted on social media about women in tech and women in VR, they get a lot of publicity.
Yeah, of course
but
they do.
I know there are just so many men out there who just support this situation.
100%,
They're fantastic people, and they want to support diversity in the field, and they're the ones who, their voice maybe not be heard so prominently,
Exactly.
but they are definitely there because we know them all,
Definitely. No, I agree. Okay, well, leading on from that then, we're going to talk briefly about a group that's been organised in America called Shift. So it's come up in the past couple of weeks. I don't know if any of you have heard about it. I might be pronouncing it wrong. Apologies. So it's been built by a couple of women in VR in America, and it's a non-profit organisation focused on shaping holistic inclusion in future technologies.
Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it?
Just rolls off the tongue. Their mission statement is to be this non-profit organisation and partner with industry leaders in emerging technologies such as augmented reality and virtual reality to sponsor and create opportunities for unrepresented groups, so diversity. Which is great, there's a great idea to make sure that everybody's being covered, everyone's being looked after. So this was posted onto, I think it was a virtual reality Facebook group quite recently, and it didn't get the best response. So it got a little bit attacked, but I wanted to touch on it anyway. So the women that were running it were really, really excited. They were hyped for it. They're posting it everywhere. And it just didn't get the best response. So one of the ladies called Helen from NextVR posted a LinkedIn article about it titled, "This has to happen before virtual reality can succeed." So I kind of want to talk about this a little bit with the panel. So I kind of want to ask if you do believe that diversity must be challenged before VR is successful, as the state that the article was posted. So what do you think about that? Do you think that we have to highlight it and go, this little thing down here, this is really important before VR can succeed? Or do you think, no, we'll be fine, it doesn't matter? What do you think?
I think Roy touched on this morning with the AMD talk, where he said, for VR, we have to include everybody. And I think that's sort of consumers and developers. And I think that was a really good point.
Yeah.
And I mean, look how far the industry's come now, and look how far VR is coming now. And I just think, with it being such a pioneering field, getting as much inclusion as possible can only be a good thing, right? I mean, that's just my opinion. Yeah. But that's
the whole point.
That's my opinion. But I think VR is going to move forward and shape itself anyway. But I think including as many people as possible and getting as much in sort of different points of view, different backgrounds, and I think it's important in any sort of development process.
I think it's naturally happening as VR evolves, as it goes away from just almost like a gaming platform to having all these different areas in education, in experiences and in healthcare and all these different sort of facets of it, it naturally creates a more diverse community working in it.
Yeah.
And there are plenty of women. I mean, there's plenty of women here. There are women working in the industry. It's just about showing them as well, and there doesn't need to be a 50-50 ratio.
Exactly.
You know, you don't have that in other professions. You don't need that here. But, you know, just highlight that there are lots of women working in it in all different areas. So it just naturally evolves. So I don't think you need to say, you know, VR's never going to succeed unless it's a diverse 50-50 split. That's not going to happen. But there are naturally a lot of women involved, just as there are, you know, men as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would also make the, you know, obviously there's the moral argument about why it should happen. And I think, you know, we've talked about that quite a lot already. But, you know, for any business, why would you want to exclude a huge portion of your potential market? I just find it a really bizarre approach to, you know, women are consumers, women have a lot of buying power. I just, you know, it just seems like a really strange argument, you know, on those Facebook groups who are trying to shoot down people like Helen from Next VR.
Yeah.
You know, it's it doesn't make economic sense either.
Yeah, exactly. Sophie,
Yeah,
thanks.
I feel exactly the same as what all of you have said. It's if we want to make VR accessible to everybody and want to have them as consumers for every kind of market, then we have to have people working in the industry that knows the views of what's being created for the consumer, really. Yeah.
Exactly, really good points. Thank you. So we're going to move swiftly on away from those points now. But I'd like to know, obviously, depending on who's in this room, you might be, you know, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years in the industry, or you might just be starting out. So I kind of want to see what the panel think about who in the industry is somebody, you know, who are your role models? Who is somebody that you would go to for advice, or is there anybody that you think everybody in this room should be looking at in terms of going, oh, they're doing some fantastic work in VR. I love the way they do their audio. I love the way they do their design. Is there anybody or any companies out there you think that everybody should be following?
For me, I love immersive experiences. I love immersive stories. So I automatically go to Nonny de la Petta and Chris Milk. I wanted to get in first before Marisol, because they create, probably Chris Milk more so than Nonny, because I like the 360 filming and I like those kinds of immersive experiences, and looking at whether it is this empathy machine, it generates attachment to stories, and how do you measure that? Those kinds of stories and creators I really, really love, but then about applying that kind of technique to education, and then I think you get something really powerful. So I'm certainly within that kind of genre, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say Nonny as well. I think a really big fan of her work. But as something that's happened over the past, you know, an experience that I've had over the past year, which I really found amazing, was Tilt Brush. And that is obviously a completely different thing. And it was something for me that, you know, I'm never going to be able to I'm quite sad in a way. I'm never going to be able to recreate that experience of having that for the first time and seeing what that was like. It's just utterly magical and a wonderful experience. And so that for me, I think is a fantastic product. And I think it's here, isn't it?
I think they've got something at the after party.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Tilt Brush. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
If not, we'll just plug it in.
Yeah.
I've got it on the laptop. Sophie, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I really love the work that Coatsink are doing. I think Esper is amazing, and I love that their office is up in Newcastle, close to my company, and the work that they do. But also, I forget which company created it, but the Vive demo, fantastic contraption, where you basically have to build different puzzles. So you have like a pink ball, and you have to get it on the other side of the room, and you have to build. would you describe it as, like cars or just any kind of puzzle to get it to the other side of the room. And I found myself getting down on the floor, getting underneath what I had built, and like really using the space of the Vive, and I love that. And I think their company is definitely one to look out for.
And when I was at GDC earlier this year, I was with some of the girls from Sony, Karen and Ellie, and Ellie was demoing the PlayStation VR social demo, which was awesome, and Karen has been working on the heist. So her sort of what she'd been working so hard on was on exhibit there, and it was just really nice to be in the company of those two girls and just be like, we've been working hard on this, and and they're just really proud. So it was just really nice to see such, like someone as big as PlayStation sort of putting these experiences out there, and that was really inspiring. Yeah, that was nice.
Amazing. Lovely. Right, okay, so I'm going to lead on one final question for you all. So we spoke about in the beginning how we think there's been lots of successes in VR in the past year. I kind of want to know what you think the challenges will be for the next 12 months. So it could be anything from obviously technical issues, consumer adoption. What do you think will be the big challenges for the next 12 months?
I think the consumer adoption is quite a big one. I think that's why the Samsung talk was so good this morning, like sort of making it accessible. Yeah. And I'm a big advocate for that. And like Katie's social VR talk as well, that sort of putting it out there, making it available to everybody. I think everyone's totally on it. They know what the problems are going to be. They're just on it. So, yeah, it's...
I approach it... Sorry.
Go on, it's fine.
I approach it really, from a more corporate, departmental point of view because, I'm working on the fringes of this space rather than, deeply immersed in it like you are. So I think the big challenge is just the continuing explanation of what it is. And this is something that surfaced in the article that I wrote. I had to rewrite it 4 or 5 times. So the editor wanted more explanation of what is it? What is it? Be more basic about it. And that was a surprise to me, given it was a sort of a high quality title like that. I just think that people who are working in the sector do forget that there is this enormous group who still don't really know what it is. So you mustn't forget that, if you're working in VR.
I think for me, it's the research. I work in a university, and it's really important that we're doing research on this kind of stuff as well. So I've done some data on narratives and how people are receiving this, and impact and empathy and those kinds of things. It's getting the hard evidence behind it, so we know what's worked, and there's not enough questions being asked about that. But also what Kim was saying earlier, getting rid of the bad experiences so people don't put on a headset for the first time and see something that's really bad.
Yeah, I love that.
And then switching off the technology and just pushing VR aside, saying, that doesn't work for me. So it's almost making sure that everyone has a really, really good first VR experience, because there is a lot of bad content out there. And a lot of, as someone said earlier, that they wish there was a button that you couldn't watch certain stuff if you didn't have the capabilities or the machines that couldn't process things at the right rate. And I think that's really important, making sure people have great first experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'd love to see over the next year is a really solid pipeline for bringing visual effects and 360 video together. I know Kite and Lightning a little while ago now did a promotional piece for Insurgent where they put green screened people into a 3D environment, but I'd love to see it the other way around. I'd love to see 3D stuff in a 360 filmed environment, and I can't wait for that kind of stuff to happen.
Sounds good. Lovely. Right, we can let you escape in a second. But yeah, so we're done. Yeah, we're done. We're on it quick. I don't know if anybody wants to ask the panel any questions at all. Right at the back. Look at that. I don't know. I would throw you with this mic, but I can't.
Thank you, and it's great to have this representation. I'm a big believer. A lot of people talking about empathy and story, and so I really believe that you need that diversity in amongst that group, so the stories that are being told and the emotions, everything going out, are as wide as possible. So just well done. But my problem as someone that hires people is finding people. So I wondered whether there's any sources, because how many people are on your course? You say?
I think
in your
there's,
year?
oh my gosh, how many of us is there now? There's more this year. There's 9 of us on my masters.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So it's 1 in 9, isn't that? But I
Yeah.
thought it was like 1 in 40 or something. But it does sometimes feel like just with a desperate need and a want to be as diverse as possible in hiring. Is there any places I can go to connect with more girls and women?
I don't
in
think
VR?
there's a specific kind of forum or anything for jobs in VR for women, but I know that websites like VR Focus and there's another one that slipped my mind, but they obviously have all the list of VR jobs that are available. I mean, there are obviously the women in VR Facebook groups and things, and it might be, and there's a lot of men in there that are active. I know that Dan Page is in there all the time posting about what Opposable are doing, and I think maybe that's something that we can work on, and that's something that we go, hey, have you seen that job? That's going there. Like, I think that might be, part of our job to do that actively as well, and make sure that everybody else can see it, because that's quite important.
I think it's really interesting that, last summer, all of these, it really did feel like a kind of a zeitgeist movement, and it's continuing, because there are lots of people feeling the same thing at the same time. They can see what's going on, and they want to take action. They want to actually have a role to play in more diversity in the sector, but having that problem of like, how do you find people? Well, I think women are, need to be encouraged to get into it. And one of the things we said about this panel was that if anything that we say encourages somebody,
if one person from this room wants to come and talk to us, or like, I'm going to join that, I want to do this, then that's awesome. I think that's cool.
Exactly. So just chipping away at it, basically.
We are in the process of trying to set up like a directory kind of thing, for want of a better phrase, which lists all, because we get asked a lot for, can we have a female voice on can you be a woman for the day and talk about VR? So we are trying to set up like a directory which might help that kind of thing. But also, if it's to go into schools and it's to talk to school kids and just show that there are lots of people working in this arena, would be really cool.
Yeah, and that's that thing that Gina Davis says about if she can see it, she can be it, which is a really brilliant, very tweetable thing that she said in a speech once in New York, which, it's absolutely right. If girls in school, in college are seeing, female role models who are doing things, then there are paths there that they can understand and maybe want to get into.
There's a lot of sort of within the university, a lot of institutions being set up for women as well. Like the Institute of Engineering and Technology has a women's network that is open to sort of recruiters and things, and this sort of IT societies and that sort of thing. So a lot of universities have that like layer through to the recruiters as well. So there's a lot being set up for that.
Awesome. Cool. Any other questions? Come to you in a second.
3 questions.
It's not really a question, it was just an add-on from that, a little bit of positivity in light. But I'm also studying my master's, and it's kind of the opposite way round. So it's 90% women and hardly any guys on our course, and we study VR, critical thinking, theory side of it. So it is coming. So don't get out. I just want to add that there are universities out there that women do dominate this area. So
that's cool. Yeah, that's fantastic. Great. Any other questions? Lady over there. Sorry, you'll have your wine and beer soon, I promise.
Well, for me, it's that, so you're talking about you need to go to schools and talk to girls and get them sort of interested in the subject, but you haven't sort of personally expressed what drove you into it. So I'm kind of curious about that.
For it.
I thought we were going to
Go.
Okay, just really quickly. I mean, I was lucky enough to, my first VR kiss, if you like, was not literally VR, not at, oh God. Yeah, I blame her. My first experience with VR was actually Gabbo, Aurora coming over to the UK and showing us Clouds Over Sidra, which I continue to think is one of the best short films. And so that was my first kind of exposure to, a gear headset, and that was wonderful, and then had to have the chat with him afterwards, and I've gotten to know him quite well since then. But I could instantly see what was going on was that, even in my team, I have men and women in my team, and the men were just like, right, what's the camera you used? And how did you do it? And what's the stitching? And they were just like, and running away with it. And the women in my team were like, the story was really important, and the story was this, and I liked the way that was constructed, and I could just see the sort of dichotomy of how the two were approaching it. And I just thought, I've got to get involved in this. It's an extension of what we do anyway in my department, telling stories about other countries and what's happening in other places. And so it just felt like a natural extension of what we were doing. Just wanted to get involved.
I worked in television news for a while before moving into universities and started doing a lot of mobile filmmaking. But I always wanted to break down the barrier of the screen and get into a story. And it was only when I started watching immersive stories like Millions March from Vice and Clouds Over Sidra and Waves of Grace and all of those that I felt that's the barrier, that's what I've been wanting to get into, because now there is no barrier. Now I am in a story and I'm experiencing a story. So that's how I got into it. But that's what I find really interesting, is that everyone's got into VR in so many different ways, and there's no one way, is there?
No, I mean, not at all. I come from a visual effects background. I was working as a freelance animator and visual effects artist up north, and there's not all that many freelancers up there. So this company, Hammerhead, that I now work for, said, we need somebody that knows how to do compositing really quick. And I was like, I'll do it. And they're like, for 360 video. And I'm like, I have no idea at all. But I did the project, and then I just stayed with them 2 years later.
Sweet. I mean, I'm a student and I'm a programmer, and I just think it's so exciting that there's this new pioneering field, and it's there at my fingertips, and I'm able to develop for it. I'm able to learn it. I'm able to do it. Who wouldn't do that? I think that's really exciting. Plus, I really love horror games. So that idea of being in being in complete peril in a controlled environment is just brilliant. So, partly curiosity, partly because, who wouldn't if it's there? It's just exciting.
Awesome. Should we leave it at that? Yeah, they're literally like,
in about 2 minutes.
Get off the stage.
Quickly.
Well, you can. But yeah, I just wanted to say thanks so much. That was amazing. I feel like I'm stepping in on your bit.
Jump
well
in,
done.
jump in.